About a year ago, I posted the no stamina video, and one of the top comments for that video was, "I swear, one day this man is gonna beat Genshin without moving." So, here we are now, 1 year later, and I still haven't killed myself. You saw the thumbnail, you saw the title, there's no need to beat around the bush. So let's just go over the rules. We cannot walk, dash, run, or use alternate sprints. Swimming, gliding, climbing, and teleporting are allowed, and movement abilities are only allowed if it is absolutely necessary. There are some where it's a clean no, but you can make arguments for certain characters like Kirara or Sayu because they're not technically walking or whatever. For every 5 times that I mess up, that is 1 spin on the punishment wheel. And lastly, we will be free to play. Now that we've got all of the rules established, let's see if we can beat Genshin Impact without walking. We start our journey with a decision. We have to pick our sibling. And before we can start this long, grueling adventure, we need to know which of these two is more suited for the task. Is there actually... Okay, I know they have different attacks. Is it actually advantageous in this? Genuine question. Does it actually matter for this? Okay, you said Lumine has faster attacks. Alright, we're going Ether. Since I'm a JoJo fan, I felt that the best name for our traveler in this no walking challenge would be Johnny. But I saw someone in chat mention a name that was even better. Because we aren't running this year, we will be known as Joe Biden. Hopefully something doesn't happen to him 2 days after uploading this video. Do you hear that, federal agents? Once we lose our running mate, we can begin the challenge. So, you're probably wondering right now, MistahFeet, you're so funny and attractive, but how could you move in a no moving challenge? And this is the answer you've all been waiting for. We've got charged attacks and jump canceling. This is an interesting bit of fancy tech. See, normally when you're standing still, you can't jump forward. If you press forward in the air, it means absolutely nothing. Sleepy Joe here will not move forward. But if you do an attack and press forward and jump, you can jump forward. And that's it. That is our only movement for this challenge. So now, an interesting question appears. What will happen faster? Me beating the game or developing carpal tunnel? Comment your thoughts down below. And if we're gonna have to do this for the whole game, we're gonna need some energy. So boom, Gamer Subs, that's the sponsor. They got shirts, cups, ramen, tea, snacks, and even energy drinks that come with both caffeine and caffeine-free versions. My favorite flavor is lean, and would you look at that, it's got Sleepy Joe right on the front. That's not a bit, this is actually my favorite one. Unfortunately, they had to change it because the US government got involved. So if you want to support both me and Sleepy Joe, use code FEET at GamerSubs for 10% off all of your orders. And yes, that is the real code because they're cool, so they let me have that. And they also let me make these sponsor segments short. Bye, GamerSubs. Alright, back to the video. Once we attacked our way down the slope, we came across another temporary way to travel. But it does have a little bit of a drawback to it. If you keep pressing forward while swimming as you make land, you will automatically walk when the water becomes too shallow. That was a walk right there. Luckily for us, I was able to tap W even more lightlier for the next swimming section. Huge! And we hopped our way over to the forest to unlock Amber. This is a character that, in theory, sounds like she wouldn't be too bad for this run, since she can attack from range and she has Baron Bunny. But there is one big problem that her and every other bow character have, that being they cannot move when using their charge attacks. They might as well be holding a sign that says, "Please, hit me." The rest of our introduction into Mondstadt was filled with mess-ups until we eventually came across an unexpected obstacle. This is a pretty dangerous part of the run since the game tells us that at the top, but in actuality, it does bring a problem for us since we are forced to glide off of this platform. However, to do that, we have to move forward, and the game does not let us do anything else but move forward. Oh well, guess I won't have to spend hours of my day looking at Ether go, huh? That's not what you guys want. This This would just be the first can't for Sleepy Joe here. And if you want to get philosophical, you could debate that it doesn't count because Biden's feet were on the air and all of that stuff. But while you do that, I'm gonna go gambling. Normally at this point, I would like to demonstrate my enormous amount of testosterone by being ballsy and pulling on standard banner. But Noelle's banner is actually really important for us. Since we can't dodge, we will be taking damage in this challenge. There's no way around it. So by having her shield be here, even if it only absorbs like 3 hits, that is still hits that our president will not have to suffer from.
Get down, Mr. President! No!
I think we are going to get 2 4-stars in this pool, actually, because there was a little bit of a stutter at the beginning, and that's because they had to load the second 4-star, so my guess is probably like a beta with this. First, we had Amber's Domain. This served as just a taste of the combat experience for us. Noelle's shield into Traveler into hopefully they die. And if they don't die, then we just turn into a snail, and once we reach the enemy, then they kill over.
Whoops.
Fuck, that was a walk. I saw that was another one. Fuck. Next, we had a little bit of the game being just a silly little guy. Then we finally accomplished the first objective. After surviving an assassination attempt, we began Kaya's domain, which posed another obstacle for us. Inside, we have to get across some spikes. Normally, I sprint jump over the spikes to demonstrate my testosterone, but since we're not running, we can only do 1/2 of that technique. But we do have Kaya who can ice bridge. At first glance, it seems like it could be dangerous since our method of traveling is much slower than the intended way, but luckily the ice stays on here long enough for us to cross. Once we completed the objective, we unlocked a Kaya, but he will only be here temporarily. Kaya is not bad for this challenge since the last hit of his normal attacks teleports us to the enemies, but Kaya's not going to be on the team for much longer.
If you say your mom, you're fired. My mom? Get out!
I chose to keep him off of the team since I basically use Kaya for every challenge, and I wanted this to be different. So now, we're gonna act like my ex-wife and settle for less. And by less, I mean Lisa. Once we burned the rock, we obtained the final piece for our team at the moment because we can't get the last character until later. But after an hour and 8 minutes, we were done with the first act, which still makes this faster than the no teleporting run. At this point, I usually go into details about the run while we grind up to the second act of Mondstadt, but I want to save that for later because the second act is one of the more difficult parts of this run, and I wanted to get it over with as fast as possible.
Let's do it.
So to get XP, we went straight for Kaya's story quest. Aside from a couple of mistakes, the real meat of this quest was short and the combat was over before it even really began. Next, we had Amber's story quest, which is one of the few quests that have actually been nerfed in this game. And if you're curious about what they changed, it was these wind currents right here. But even with this change, the quest was still too strong for us. What do you mean by that? Towards the end of the quest, Sleepy Joe has to deliver some drone strikes on the hilly churls, but there is an issue here, and it's not a moral one. In order for us to take flight, we have to run off the platform and jump, but we can't move forward. Joe Biden is not allowed to use his sword, and we can only jump in place, meaning that the only thing we can do from this point is leave and never return. Hopefully it doesn't interfere with another one. After we grinded a little more XP, we hit AR-10, then made some 10 pulls on standard banner. All that for a Favonius Greatsword, which is actually the banner we wished on throughout a majority of the challenge, because even if there was the slightest chance that I could get any of these 5 stars, it would mainly be a punishment because we couldn't level them up without having to go all the way across the world. But at 2 hours and 3 minutes, we started Act 2 of Mondstadt, which might just be the fastest out of any account, but keep in mind, we are still only AR-10. To begin, all we have to do is follow Venti, and let's just take a moment to think about how scary that must be to turn around and see someone swinging a sword and slowly jumping towards you. Like seriously, could you imagine Michael Myers doing something like that? Once we reached the target, we chased him down to the Windrise tree so we could tase the Eye of the Storm. But in reality, it should be called the calm before the storm because next was one of the most difficult parts of the run. After hopping inside the church, we have to go inside the basement and bring back one of the older memes of my channel. In this area, we are only allowed 3 options of movement: walking, running, and rolling. I'm sure you can understand why that's a problem for us. Yes, we actually have to do this every time. Rolling is the only way we can traverse this place, but there is a little bit of tech that we can use here. While we're rolling, I'm going to be holding A on the keyboard so that it turns me left, so pay attention to this. See? Sometimes you can get those hype moments when you do a diagonal roll by pressing both the directions at the same time.
Wait, what? That's insane!
But for the most part, you're stuck with the 4 cardinals. Our first attempt did not go too well, since we walked twice and I messed up the positioning on our rolls, which put us next to the ladder rather than in front of it, so we couldn't climb. Damn. Okay. As for the second attempt, Biden decided to go Republican, and seeing as how I'd never taken this path before in any of these challenges, I decided to plan out my approach.
Whoops.
There's that guard we have to keep out for. It seems like what we need to do is try and get over there. We should be set. Like, actually, I think if we get to this second pillar, we should be set because we should be able to, like, just roll straight up there. This route worked better for us since all we had to do was roll upstairs rather than aim towards a ladder. There were a couple of close calls, but luckily the NPCs had some NPC moments and we made it to the Lyre. This was the first of 4 stealth sections we had to do, and thankfully, we got it done. Oh my god. Yeah, Sleepy Joe's awake right now. Joe Biden's up! Next was the Fatui hideout, which started off as a problem for us since we teleported over to the pond, and since I was extra careful when trying to swim so as to not repeat the first mess up, I accidentally drowned because I was tap swimming and Noelle is still short. What? So we had to ice bridge and jump over. Inside the hideout, we come across yet another unexpected obstacle. These fire turrets are rotating platforms. Normally, you can just full sprint across it and you're fine. I'm sure you can understand why that's a problem for us. Icarus! Icarus! No! What happened? Aside from that, the only other issue for us is the Fatui agent. These are some of the more annoying enemies for us to battle simply because they're invisible and we can only rely on auto-targeting for battle. We can't do anything. It's like being a baby with object permanence and you're forced to play peekaboo. I can still see you, I just can't do anything about it. Once we retrieved the Lyre, we hopped back over to the bar, then immediately had to leave again. Okay, really, Diluc, you've experienced what we've had to go through and make them do something. Our first objective brought us over to the Ruin Guard, which is an enemy we have to be pretty careful with. We can't just stick to them because if they decide to do their spin attack, this is our only form of escape. Run! Noelle! Come on, Noelle! Come on! Yes! Oh, we got it! After defeating the robot, we slowly jumped up a ramp to get the second tier. Lastly, we had to go to the ruin in the woods, but before we could enter the door, we got sucked by another Eye of the Storm. This made me sad because I thought we were gonna have to fight it with our Lisa, who doesn't exactly do this thing called damage. However, her attacks make us go backwards, which allowed us to enter the domain. F's for that guy. Bro wanted a fight. Bro is pissed. This domain was a very slow process for 2 reasons. The first being we don't do that much damage, and the second is the reason that I probably shouldn't even have to say. But this environment does allow us to get some special moments like this. Oh, you see that dodge? You're jumping like kangaroo? Yeah, make I hope you're happy, chatter. I was reading your mess. You distracted me. Zeus, go ahead. Get that ass banned. Mods, ban that guy, thank you. To end off Act 2, we had to jump up 420 meters to reach the top of the cliff. This honestly took us about 3 minutes, so just to put this into perspective for the rest of the run, that means we move at an average of 140 meters per minute. We finished Act 2 at 3 hours and 18 minutes, but we are still pretty behind when it comes to adventure rank. And while we grind up to AR 18, I'll discuss the troubles that this account went through. The issues with this account are mainly divided into 2 sections, and unfortunately for me, those troubles revolve around the 2 most important parts of an open world game: exploration and gameplay. Exploration is pretty self-explanatory. We just covered the average speed for our method of movement, and if you want to understand our pain even more, then look at this. 1 jump cancel moves us about 2 to 4 meters. Other than that, gliding and climbing are pretty much the same. I did learn a new tech that helped with swimming though, that being if you just use the fast swim, then it will automatically bring you to a stop when you reach land, so long as you don't press anything else.
Touch.
Don't touch.
Platforming isn't too bad because we can actually move a somewhat good distance with our jumps, and also because we got a new team member. Sleepy Joe is back, this time with a new upgrade: rocks. If we put a rock down on top of us, then press the jump button, we get put on top of the rock. This is useful because this gives us a chance to glide as another form of movement. Yeah, we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel to get away with doing this challenge. Gliding is normal for the most part. The only thing to keep in mind is that we have to use my signature pause technique. Basically, just right before you land, stop moving forward so you don't accidentally walk. The only other issue I can talk about in regards to exploration is that it can be very inconvenient to do precise movements. Like sometimes you will just miss a jump and fall off, or other times you can't get chest because you might be like 2 inches to the right of it, and sometimes you just straight up cannot talk to someone just because you're not directly in front of them. We need you to turn around, please. Talk to Shincho. I can't talk to him from here. This is actually going to be the hardest part of this challenge, trying to line up a conversation with him. But I
didn't have to talk, what? We just had to be in that exact spot?
Now we've got the combat. I've already touched upon some of the issues such as getting hit by everything, which is true. It is the exact reason why Noelle is here, but there's more to combat than just getting hit. In this run, I decided to make Lisa our main DPS. I made this decision before starting the challenge when I was making the plans for this run. This conclusion stemmed from two reasons. One, Lisa's attacks have a lot of range to them, so we don't have to worry about getting close to enemies, and she's constantly teleporting. And two, Lisa's materials are pretty close together. Aleph is right next to the domain, and the Valberries come in 4 and are located in just this one region. The only downside with Lisa is that she doesn't do a lot of damage. I have not seen scaling this low since Chi-Chi. Good lord. I know that it does less because she's ranged and it's elemental damage, so you don't have to tell me, but good golly, this sucks. Even though our main DPS doesn't do much damage, at least our sub DPS does. That's right, Sleepy Joe is one of the main characters for this run. Biden is good mainly because of Geo. Like I mentioned earlier, we can glide more with our rocks, but they also do a ton of damage. Like seriously, we got this soy girl over here throwing lightning, then we got the Chad Joe just throwing a rock at someone for 500 damage. Also, we get a crystallized shield, which just protects us from another hit. But Traveler is also another character that going into this, I know I wanted to use, mainly because they don't have any boss materials, so whenever we reach a new ascension rank, we can just ascend them. Noelle is here for one reason that we've already discussed, and Amber will not be with us for much longer. She's got Baron Bunny, but standing still to do damage just is not the move for us. And the last thing to talk about with combat would be the auto-aim. I don't mind the auto-aim when it comes to actually attacking enemies, but when Kaya keeps fighting an already activated Pyro Monument, it's just... why? As we kept grinding and making mistakes, we stumbled across yet another unexpected obstacle with Xiangling's story quest. Near the end, we have to help her in a cooking contest, but she wants us to give her either a frog or lizard tail. And I mean, what are the odds the one day that Joe Biden leaves the office, he didn't bring his iconic frog and lizard tail that he always has in his pocket? So we had to go find them. The problem is that since we move with our attacks, if an attack hits a frog, it dies. And it also doesn't help that they hop away from us. Luckily, we managed to catch one frog before it despawned. Then we finished this quest and we could finally begin Act 3 at nearly 9 hours, making this the slowest challenge by far. Yippee! After helping our calves get stronger one attack at a time, we finally made it to Storm Terror's lair.
This is why we're not using Noelle stuff, by the way, chat, for this little inconveniences like that.
At first glance, this part would seem annoying because we have to go in a circle, but we actually have something to help with that. The teleport waypoint that everyone hates actually has a use, and it's literally just for this one section. We used it for the first and second seal, but for the last one, I decided to hop over and we came across a tornado, which actually helped us because once we got close to it, it immediately spat us out. After bringing these pyramids over to the seal
has been broken.
We began the final battle of Mondstadt. Normally at the start, I run straight through to Valen to once again demonstrate my testosterone, but we can't do that.
But we gotta dodge, move, okay.
So Venti had to bring out the shotgun to break his shield, and instead of climbing onto his head and attacking him, I chose to use Venti's vent current, which led to a mistake, and to Valen living. After a minute of waiting, Venti loaded up some more shells, and we were done with Mondstadt at 9 hours and 40 minutes, making this the slowest challenge. But as a reward, we got a new party member.
I had to lock in there.
Barbara is here, and she is here to stay. And her reason for being here is exactly what you would think it is. Noelle's shield can only hold out for so long, so whenever we inevitably take damage, we've got Barbara to take care of us. Plus, Oceanid is a pretty easy boss for us to deal with because we've got Elisa. And with the inclusion of Barbara, Joe Biden's cabinet is officially assembled. We've got the President, Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Witchcraft, and Tax Fraud. Before we can start Leeway, we need to get more XP, which included a daily commission that had our one weakness.
Ah, there we go. Huge time save for us. Do we make this? Let me get my protractor out. I think we do. I do not think we make this anymore. Chat, they found our weakness. Speed. We get this. Yes! Huge! Actually huge. That was actually queso right there.
After making a couple of mistakes, we continued our whimsical journey to Leeway with some pretty interesting conversations.
Chat, I want you to be real with me. Do you think I could kick a 6-year-old's ass? Will we make this in time? Surely we do. The pot got rid of our scarlet crystal. But I'm out of my head when you're... Jarvis, enhance. How is she reading this? No, no! We're in a corner! I can't see now! $1 for anyone who can say right now, full detail, paragraph essay, what is going on. The fight reset.
But even after many inconveniences, we still managed to hit AR-23. Leeway Act 1 starts us out at the Rite of Dissension. After Rex Lapis parkours off of a ledge and dies, we have to get out of here. But there is a catch. We have to stealth out of here. This is the second stealth section in the game. Like the first part, our main movement option here is to roll. But I did not feel like that was the best solution. We already know the main issues with rolling, and since this area has more guards, we have less room for error. So I decided to take a secret path. Normally for this part, what I would do is walk over here, then run along the side over to the goal. But we can't do that. However, we can do something similar. We rolled over to the edge and used a technique that I've been waiting to tell you guys. If you are standing by a wall and you jump, you will not grab onto it. You will just keep going up and down. But if you are standing next to a wall, jump and press forward, you will grab onto it. So what I did here was fall down onto a ledge, roll next to a wall, jump and press forward, then slowly climbed horizontally to our goal. Once we made it to the edge, our Joe Biden was just barely able to hop the ledge and we rolled over to victory on our first try. Oh! Next we had the deer, which started off great for us.
Whoops.
Aside from the rough start, this battle was pretty good for the Biden administration, as the deer kept giving us funds to basically do whatever we wanted to these people without us getting hurt at all. Next we had Cloud Retainer's domain, which we also managed to do first try thanks to Biden's rocks. Afterwards, we had the Ruin Hunter, which started off the same as our encounter with the deer.
Whoops.
Lisa got a little too comfortable with this fight, which led to Noelle having to take a bullet for her. Lastly, we had the Mountain Crane, and all I wanted in this moment was to have better RNG than the no teleporting run, and thankfully, Joe Biden got what he wanted. Yes, good RNG! 1% represent.
Alright, chat. I gotta go to the bathroom real quick.
Rex Lapis. Assassinated?
At the Rite of Dissension! I tricked you. I tricked you.
At nearly 12 and a half hours, we finally beat the first active leeway, but we still had to grind some more XP. To start off, I tried to do the Spiral Abyss, which has a similar problem to Amber's Quest. When you enter the Abyss, until you reach the center, you can only walk forward and jump, so we can't do either. This is really bad for us because that means we can't get Shungling. So for all those people saying that Shungling would be great for this challenge, I can't get her. After nearly 5 hours of grinding and mistakes, we hit AR-25 and entered the Ascension domain. This area actually provides a somewhat decent challenge for Biden's cabinet. This is a game based off of elemental reactions, and we don't really have any good ones at the moment. No offense to Electrocharged.
No, I'm with you.
Our main strategy is damage, which is something that our main DPS is still struggling with. There's an Anemo Mage who is one of the most top 3 annoying enemies in this challenge, because when they do their move, we just have to hold it. We can't do anything. We're not fast enough. Then we have a Biggie Churl who just goes straight through our defense with his axe.
Here's Johnny.
At 17 hours and 46 minutes, we began Leeway Act 2. Starting with the cooking pot, Biden's tax fraud manager was temporarily replaced with his hired gunman. And I'll be honest, she did not do a great job. I would say that this was much more impressive than actually hitting the arrows. Luckily for her, the main objective involved hitting an immobile object, so she still accomplished her goal. Next, we talked to Joe Biden.
Hey everyone, I'm Joe Biden's husband.
Then entered the teapot. But we went in without our trusty tax fraud manager, so we had to go out. This area has an abundance of slimes, a majority of which were electro, so yet again, our main DPS is really not our main DPS.
Not an intellectual. You're a fake and a fraud.
And surprisingly enough, platforming was also an issue here.
Honestly, maybe not much longer. I just want to know how. I just want to know how. Because I was there, right? I was on it.
Once we made it to the wind current, we have to glide over to the circle. The problem is that we don't get enough height from the wind, so there was a good chance that I would not be able to do my signature pause technique without messing it up. So we decided to go towards the left, where there is a tree branch that is positioned lower than the platform, giving us more time to use my signature pause technique without worry of accidentally walking. But we still aren't done with platforming because we have to jump across invisible platforms. And yet again, Sleepy was not able to make the jump because of my signature pause technique. So for the next run, we went back to our roots and used jump cancels. We did end this domain off on a good note though, because our main DPS was actually able to do her job.
I killed something!
After the teapot was the ballista, and my one worry about this area, the only thing I did not want to happen was for a treasure hoarder to get knocked off the edge, simply because I knew we would have to go back up.
Hold up, he's got a Molotov. Oh no, does he die from this? Alright chat, put yourselves in that treasure hoarder's shoes right there. Go in his shoes real quick. Would you have lived that? And be honest, would you have survived? Yes or no?
And at nearly 19 hours, we were done with Act 2. To grind the remaining XP, I decided to go to Oceanid so we could level up our Barbara. But in the middle of the fight, I received some mail. And after chat was asking me to open it, I did, but little did we all know that it was someone trying to hack the election. Someone trying to interfere in this race. The account was saved though because cybersecurity did change their password, and the timer was also moved over to cover the UID for the future invaders of the stream. But this was a little demotivating. We were making a lot of progress in this race, and I was beginning to have doubts about doing challenges like these in the future. It made me think about how nearly 20 hours of progress could be wiped away just like that. I didn't even know if it was safe to stream the rest of this race. I wanted to stop this race before we could even make it over to the finish line. And as I thought about turning off the game, I remembered this one quote from Joe Biden.
So the best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to. Anyway.
Wrong clip, wrong clip! And with this newfound confidence, we failed a domain a couple of times, but we eventually overcame that and started the finale of Leeway at 20 hours. First up was the Animo device, in which we used our Department of Transportation to activate it, but we did make sure to tap the skill rather than hold it, because you won't believe why this is not allowed. Then we went to the ballista again, and you'll never guess what happened here again. Quit hitting me!
Whoops.
Oh, fuck, I walked right there because I got hit by a knife.
After we flexed our quads to Zhongli,
Oh.
we then sang to some flowers.
クラピカは今言いようのない虚しさを抱えていた
The penultimate battle in Leeway is the boss fight against Child. Once again, this is a fight where our main DPS isn't that great. She puts in the work against the first phase, but that's pretty much it. In all actuality, this fight is somewhat difficult because he does a lot of his attacks one after another. So if he has a move that hits 5 times and we get hit by the first one, we are getting hit by all 5.
Please, let her go. She didn't do anything.
This is why Barbara and Noelle are here. When Biden crafted his team, he chose durability over destruction, and that's pretty obvious with our damage. Following 7 minutes of trying our hardest to catch up with them, the bodyguards defeated the assailant, and we could begin the hardest part of Leeway. In this section, we have to defend 3 turrets from Fatui agents. The problem with this part is that the Fatui spawn right next to the turrets, and since it takes us at least 15 seconds to go from one side to the other, it gives those agents plenty of time to damage the turrets. And 15 seconds is a lot of time. It also sucks because Osile keeps spitting water at us, so Noelle just has to keep taking bullets for her nation. What a true soldier. The only reason we survived was because of the buffs, and not just because of one or the other. All 3 of them were crucial for this part. We needed the damage buff to one-shot the agents because we have Lisa. We needed the health buff because we kept getting spat on, and we needed the speed buff so we actually had a chance to compete. I saw in chat that you will fail this mission if just one of the turrets gets destroyed, which made me really nervous because towards the end, one of our turrets had 2 HP, and I really wasn't sure if we were gonna have to restart or not. But at the end of the day, I guess we'll never know, unless someone says it in the comments. At 21.5 hours, we beat Leeway, making this the longest challenge we have done so far, and it's only gonna get even more difficult. Not this quest though, this one's easy because Lisa can actually do stuff here.
Go. It's looking at a flower. How was this so difficult? Why did that take so long? Why?
The issue is Dainslift Part 2, and even before we can start that, I need to address something. Dainslift Part 2 requires us to do the Razor story quest, since his wolf friend shows up at the end just to stand there and do nothing. But I noticed something earlier. After I hit AR-25, I went into Wolfendom, but the cutscene for Razor's quest did not play. And at that point, I realized, Amber shows up in his story quest, and since we didn't complete Amber's quest, we could not do it. Meaning that Amber's quest is a requirement for this challenge, making Amber's section the second can't for this run. But let's go back to Dainslift Act 2, because things are about to get a lot more fun. Dainslift Act 2 begins with the first problem that most people would think of when they hear a no walking challenge. Biden's old nemesis has returned.
Ah, my old enemy. Stairs.
In this section, we have to go up these platforms while dodging bubbles, and we have a time limit, because why not? If we step on a platform, they disappear, and if we get caught up in a bubble, we disappear. Our fastest method of movement is the jump cancel, and I knew that we needed to lock in for this part.
I need silence from the auditorium. I need to get my music ready.
Whoops.
The next try went a lot better for us, and it proved that something like this could be possible since we had enough time to clear the first platform. We tried multiple times and failed multiple times, and there was even one very strange occurrence, but we couldn't give up. We knew that it had to be possible for Biden to make it up these stairs. The trick to this was waiting for the 3 bubbles. Whenever we saw the 3 bubbles, we knew that we had to take cover and wait for the next ones, because the next set of bubbles are placed right next to our hiding spot, but after that is a middle bubble. So if we stay next to the side, we will be fine.
Chat, I got dementia. Who am I? Who is this guy?
And after close to 10 straight minutes of putting our calves through absolute hell, Sleepy Joe finally made it up those stairs. The rest of the quest was really not an issue. Occasionally, our main DPS would go through a little bit of torture, but there weren't any electro enemies here. Next, we had the Jade Chamber.
Whoops.
This part was good because we finally got to use a polearm character. Shinha gave us access to the torpedo attack, which I'll be honest, I don't know how much of an improvement it is compared to our jump cancel since they go backwards when doing it, but at least it's something different to look at. Shinha was also helpful for combat, mainly in regards to the Geo Lava Churl, who is the most annoying enemy in this challenge, literally just because of their damage. They do so much damage and we can't do anything about it, aside from using our iframes from our ult. But if that isn't available, I just have to choose who dies on our team. I see him charging up and I just have to say, Noel, it was nice knowing you. But in this one particular scenario, the lava churl is not that bad because we can just freeze them. Yeah, so thanks, Shinha. I'd love to keep you here, but we've already got a main DPS. I have heavily misjudged this situation. Our last venture with Shinha was the based fight, and literally all I wanted to do was manifest, but clearly Shinha and I were not on the same wavelength.
Manifest, 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 manifest. Fuck this game.
Next, we had the prologue to Inazuma, which could have actually gone terribly for us. Had the game not buffed our HP and damage, we would have lost to the Dark Horse. We just kept trading blows with this guy, and we only survived because we were buffed. The plot saved Joe Biden, because Rongshi was a clear candidate to defeat him, but Poyoverse just pulled some strings in the situation. He did over 10k damage, and our normal health is not even close to that. Once we finished the prologue, we did some more grinding, failed some domains, messed up a couple of times, entered the chasm, got stuck in a wall. Yep, and we had to collect those damn frogs again. Why do we need this to make bomb oil? We then made our way over to Inazuma, jump canceling with my ice bridge until I messed it up and just decided, fuck it, we swim over to Inazuma. Joe Biden's first mission in this foreign land was a stealth one. This is the third stealth section for Sleepy here, and this one was one of the more difficult ones. It is a much smaller area compared to the others, and our goal here is also different from the rest. The other sections had us go from point A to B, but in here we have to go from point A to point B while following someone, which basically basically puts us on a leash. We can't go too close to him, and we can't stay too far away from him. We have to find that perfect space in between while only rolling. Our first attempt did not go well since we got stuck by a knee-high wall.
I don't think we can jump up this. Traveler, no! Get up there! I can't get it without walking. Damn.
Whoops.
Fucking I dashed.
But the second attempt went much better. To avoid relying on rolling, we did the wall cling strategy and played around the roofs. After passing his turnaround check, I think we actually lucked out here with a bug because we kept rolling without us losing any stamina.
That's a bug! That's a bug! That is a bug!
I don't know how it happened, but all I know is that we got it done without walking.
Let's go! We got him!
The first combat section was the cargo transport. Since this thing is a giant target, all the enemies focused their attention onto it, which gave us ample time to jump around and handle our business.
Whoops.
Our jumping continued as we went over to the prison and fought the guards here. We came here to give Master Masakatsu the presidential pardon, and thanks to our tax fraud manager's constant healing, we were able to do just that and finish Act 1 at 29 hours and 10 minutes.
Whoops.
Fuck, I walked right there. I noticed that. Some of you guys may not have, but I noticed it in my keen eye.
Next was the Ayaka and Yoimiya story quest, which is only here just so I can show you guys some mistakes and a little bit of story time.
Story time.
I mentioned earlier how the comment suggesting this challenge was the catalyst for the video, but this quest is actually one of the reasons I thought this challenge was even possible. The comment suggested beating the game without moving, and I would remember doing this quest for challenges, and just because the natural walking speed is so slow, I would use charge attacks to make the traveler move faster. So there's a little bit of lore for you. At the 30-hour point, we began Inazuma Act 2.
I'm eating
Whoops.
Popeyes. I walked.
The first battle was against the Raiden Shogun, and this served as yet another reminder that maybe I should not have chosen to use Lisa. The Shogun is immune to Lisa's attack, so we can only rely on using our Biden Blast for damage. And even though the Shogun is immune to Lisa, the reverse is not the same. We ended this battle with 2 deaths, our tax fraud manager on the ground, and our main DPS who can't even touch her. But luckily, she got scared of our potential, so we were able to leave. Next, we had to go west and hurry to the front line, but come on, man, I'm trying my best. 3 meters per jump. Once we made it past the front line, we had to do the archery demonstration. The main worry here was the lightning because we are a sitting duck. We can aim and rotate, but we cannot move. So when this started, I used Noel's shield to protect us from the lightning, and it served its purpose. There was no lightning, but we did have the extra protection. And of course, immediately when the shield went down, lightning struck.
Pressure getting to you?
We started Act 3 by watching not only Sleepy Joe fall down, but also our Department of Security. Then we came across the Electro Pillars, which could seem problematic at first glance, but I had already thought of a solution. Since we have Lisa who can activate this from a distance, we could easily do this in the required time. The only tricky part is aiming, which was fixed because we have Amber. All you have to do is zoom in with Amber, line this part of the crosshair next to the pillar, swap to Lisa, then boom, it's activated.
This is a once-in-a-generation moment.
Whoops.
And I walked.
Next, we went over to the Delusion Factory so we could flex our quads in front of this little twink.
Look at this dude.
The domain started off great for us because we got hit by both of the falling traps, asshole. After that were the enemies, which weren't too crazy aside from the Electro Hammer. Don't even ask how we got here because I can't tell you. But after the Delusion Factory was when Inazuma became more difficult. To begin, we have the anti-Shogun training. For our first attempt, I once again tried to exercise my testosterone by choosing to go for the hard difficulty, which went terribly.
Well, this went off great. Okay. So that went terribly.
I couldn't even last 10 seconds, which is still a lot of time. We literally can't dodge the first move because our jump isn't fast enough. And if we get hit by one attack, it takes us so long to do an action, we just get hit by the next attack. On the normal difficulty, we did pass the test after getting hit 7 times, so I don't know what country considers a 30 passing, but I guess Inazuma is one of them now. But after the training session was the most unexpected challenge in this run, and I promise you, you would not have seen this coming. Before we can hear the funny voice line, we have to set off the fireworks and run away. As we move closer to the fireworks, we can jump and attack. But as soon as we press F, we lose that privilege. And we are stuck with the rolling again. The first plan I thought of was rolling to the right and climbing alongside the bridge. But realistically, there was no way we could crawl alongside the bridge and roll to the tea house all in 40 seconds while recovering for stamina and not getting caught. So we had to go for plan B. When you roll off of the edge, edge, you cannot glide. If you roll off of an edge, then you will fall until you hit the ground. So what we had to do was aim our roll towards the left and fall off the wood. Once we fall, we need to turn back around and use my iconic jump technique to grab onto the wood. Once we're on it, we go towards the top, fall, and glide, then turn around to the wind current and follow the path towards the tea house. This area completely took me off guard, and I made a mistake while trying to work this out. But we did come up with a solution, and as a reward, we got to hear,
"None can contend with the supreme power of the almighty Raiden Shogun and the Muso no Hitotachi."
The next obstacle was Senor. I wasn't too nervous about this fight because we had plenty of survivability, even if that meant getting frozen a lot. Biden suffered most of the damage in the first phase, but the trick to this fight was just being aggressive. The longer this fight went on, the more damage the weather would do. So all we had to do was picture her as John Lennon and keep the attack up.
Kill John Lennon! Kill John Lennon!
We killed him! Suck it, John Lennon!
Next was a bit of a disappointing event. Once we killed John Lennon, we had to leave Tenshukaku, which forces us to walk. Now, if you want to get philosophical here, technically I didn't walk because I wasn't pressing W. The game was walking, not me. But even still, I'll count it as a can't because, I mean, just look at it. Lastly, we had the Shogun fight, which was just another instance of stalling. Our president did end up dying in the first half, but he was revived and proceeded to hit the Shogun with an onslaught of Biden blasts, which helped us beat Inazuma in 32 hours and 39 minutes. After Inazuma was the Ascension Domain. We had to fight the time trial again, and this was another failure for us. No! After the first failure, we changed our build and strategy for the next run. Essentially, we just cleared all of the creeps as fast as possible with our burst. Then we had plenty of time to hit the boss with our autos. Next, we had the Dainsliff Chasm quest. There's two things to talk about with this part: the parkour and the combat. The parkour isn't too bad for our situation. A lot of it was fixed with my signature pause technique, although there were a couple of close calls. The combat was only problematic for a couple of scenarios. First would be the cryo archers. Prior to this challenge, I did not know that their bows also acted as a shield, which are really annoying to play around in this run. Normally, if an enemy has a shield, the move is to either destroy it or just run behind them and attack them with the backshot barrage. But these enemies are special because you can't destroy their shields, so we have to get behind them. The issue is getting behind them. We have to deal with auto-targeting. Normally, you would just dash and then boom, you're behind them. But in this, we have to jump cancel like 3 or 4 times just to get to their back. Another enemy we had to face was the Electrolector. After Halfdan sacrificed himself for his leader,
Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
Biden chose to replace Lisa with Kaya because she was going to be useless. The main worry here was actually the base health. I had a plan for the Electro Shield, but doing actual damage was an issue since now we only had one person. But thankfully, the Department of Defense and our tax fraud manager kept us alive for the Electro phase. My goal here was to use Kaya to delete his shield, and even though he's only level 13, I knew he was going to be safe because of Biden. We still have Geo Biden, and since the Lecter is now considered fully Electro, whenever we hit him with a rock, we get an Electro Crystallized to protect Kaya. And because the Lecter only does Electro damage, the shield does not take any damage from that. So Kaya would remain safe to finish his job. Following plenty of close calls with the Abyss Mages, we slipped up and finished the quest.
Whoops.
Oh, fuck, that was a walk there. That was definitely one. I thought he was gonna climb, that's why I pressed W.
And now we could start Sumeru Act 1, which begins on a bummer. Towards the start, we have to follow the voices. And since we are next to Irminsul, our abilities to jump, pull out a sword, and crouch are just fully disabled. Now, if you want to get philosophical here, I performed the Genshin Shuffle, so technically it's not walking because it's not a continuous motion, but my fingers got tired and I couldn't keep going. And the disappointment continues because I didn't pay attention to the game and I failed to perform my signature pause technique.
Whoops.
I walked right there.
The first combat section in Act 1 is the Withering Zone, and believe it or not, at the 4th nation of the game, we finally do damage! Joe Biden changed his element from Geo to Dendro, which gave us access to Hyper Bloom. Barbara makes them wet, Sleepy exercises his Second Amendment rights, and Lisa hypers the Bloom. Gee, who would have thought that elemental reactions would be so helpful in this game full of elements? The world works in mysterious ways. The next battle was the Tree Domain, and at this point, I kinda realized that this challenge was basically a turn-based RPG. RPG. Now that we have an administration that actually works together, we do a lot of damage, but since we can't move and the enemies are also higher leveled, we still take a lot of damage. So most fights go like this. Hyper Bloom, and if they live, we get knocked down, then we hit them back, and ideally, we kill them, but sometimes that doesn't happen. Once we made a peace treaty with the unkillable Hydro Herald,
You were supposed to condemn him.
What?
we hopped all the way over to the city and the harbor. That was a lie because we used the boat, but we did jump for the last 200 meters. And if we do the math that was established earlier, that's over 66 jumps. After once again showcasing my signature pause technique, we drowned. Then we one-shotted the main treasure hoarder. God damn. Finally, our main DPS has showed up. Now we have Act 2. Yet again, this is another area in which attacking is faster than the base walking.
Come on, move. Juniors, I'm more like Dunyers are.
That was a pretty good one past me. Following an hour of jumping jacks behind slow-ass NPCs, we finally began Act 3. The most nerve-wracking part of this quest was not the combat sections, since we just have Hyper Bloom. The only part that kinda had me worried was when we had to follow Al-Haytham, because he just kinda left us in the dust, and the conversation before made it seem like we were gonna get caught and dragged away. I also encountered probably the most unlucky fall ever done in this game. Like, if you asked me to do this 50 times, I don't think I could replicate this.
Really?
Act 4 gave us more of a challenge. We began with a race against Isak, which normally would be a stomp, but in this environment, it was pretty even. And we were doing this for fun, so this just didn't even really matter in the end, so yeah, it was fine, nothing happened. Next, we made another mistake because I wasn't able to do my signature pause technique since we glided straight through a wind current. How? Then we took Sleepy Joe over to the mental hospital, which I will probably also need to go to because I'm gonna go insane over the fact that this missed. What? After the pyramid, we got exposed by Sino because he was the only one who seemed to recognize the challenge we were doing, and he kept looking at me like I was an idiot. For the path to the pyramid, we were able to glide for most of it, but we did have to jump for the last remaining 700 meters, and if we go back to the math chart, that would be over 200 jumps, but I'm not like a math genius. You would have to use a calc to find that out. Calc is short for calculator, by the way. We're just using a little bit of slang. Once we made it inside the pyramid, our main DPS continued her streak of actually being a main DPS, and we also got to experience the game in first person. But once we made it to the base of the pyramid, we encountered yet another disappointing moment. Since we entered the pyramid that makes it to where you can't use a weapon, jump, or crouch, we had to walk. Now, if you want to get philosophical here, you could argue that we weren't walking because I was pressing A and D on the keyboard and not W, which stands for walking, so it wouldn't be breaking the rules, but I mean, coming on, you could just look at it. Act 5 of Sumeru was probably the hardest part of this challenge, and most of that can honestly be blamed towards Lisa being our main DPS. I knew this quest was going to be rough when I didn't use my signature pause technique.
But miss input, calm down! You calm the down!
Looks like the legs aren't getting a break anytime soon. Next, we had the final stealth section. This is the last one in the challenge, and it is actually the easiest one. It is a very small distance, and there is a pretty obvious path for us to use that actually works. The only issue was the stairs, but since those guards have no peripheral vision, we were able to make our adjustments pretty easily. But those Fatui agents heard me talking some shit, so I had to defend myself in front of an unconscious woman. We did okay for the first couple of enemies. The main problem was the Fatui agent and the electro hammer.
It's the hammer! He's real! Dudes, take my picture!
The Electro Hammer is an issue because of his attacks and resistance. Since our main DPS is Electro, she's pretty useless against his shield, and Biden's shotgun nor Barbara's money laundering hands could hurt it either. Plus, the hammer has combos that basically do half of our health, and they have so much range that if we get hit by one, we get hit by all of them. Then we have the Fatui agent, who was just frustrating because we can't touch him. I failed this part multiple times, but I was determined to do this without using food, mainly because I didn't want to leave to make more. So against my wishes, I decided to listen to chat and use Kaya for this. And it worked. His skill 2 shots the electro shield, so it's no longer an issue. He replaced Noelle because she was only there for her shield, but I never leveled her past 40, so that thing was just made out of paper. It seems that no matter what challenge I do, Kaya is always the answer.
Everywhere I go, I see his face.
Later on, we tried to sneak into the academia, which failed miserably, and I just can't seem to understand how they could have spotted us. After that, we had a breath of fresh air because we got to play as Nilu, whose attacks cover some of the least amount of distance in the game. She starts to actually use her legs when she uses her skill, but it's on such a long cooldown that we had to stick with our jump cancel. Next, we had to play as a child, and the game does force us to walk here, but I'm not going to count this because 1, we aren't in control at all, and 2, this isn't a playable character. Sorry, Isak, you should have let me win the race earlier, you little shit.
I know for a fact I would beat that 6-year-old in a fight.
The last parts of Act 5 are all combat focused, and that begins with the factory. This area has 3 electro hammers, so once again, Noelle was promptly escorted off of the team for a level 13 Kaya. Our first battle resulted in a very quick defeat. There's a hydro gunner and an electro hammer here. We basically have to go for the gunner first since he can heal the hammer, but we only have one element that does well against the hydro shield, and that is Lisa. But it's hard to keep her out on the field consistently because the electro hammer keeps running her down. So the strategy was to just keep destroying the electro shield with Kaya, which stuns the hammer. Then we try to kill the hydro one as fast as possible. Our plan worked, but the hydro gunner got his health reset from reasons that I can't even begin to imagine. The rest of the enemies weren't as problematic since a majority of the fights were done one at a time, so we had plenty of time and space to use Hyper Bloom. There were a total of 3 deaths in this domain, but that was nothing an Egg and Barbara couldn't fix.
Come!
Next was the Scaramouche fight. For this, I wasn't able to enjoy Bluey with my chat because our immortal strategy does not work when there's 4 characters. So while my chat gets to enjoy Impreg, I get to fight an Electro boss with an Electro main DPS. Fun fact, this episode was banned by Disney for a little bit. Yeah, I have nothing but tragedy to tell in this video. The real fight was similar to the end of Leeway in the sense that we got hard carried by the buffs. If this pig wasn't here, I genuinely don't know how we could have won this. And since we had Nahida, we could destroy all of the turrets and hit a damage high in any of the challenges so far of almost 25k. Boom! Lastly, in Act 5, we had to get to Rukadevada's boat, and after barely scraping by with my signature pause technique, we had to take down the Wolf Clan, which I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. It is crazy how a level 13 Kaya is more useful than our Noelle. All he had to do was land one skill or use his burst, and he's already doing more. Once we made it to the boat, we nearly fell, but we were saved by the vine, only to make another mistake.
Your grandma walked in the room while you were yelling? Oh, fuck, I walked! I was reading your chat!
To end Act 5, sadness returns in the form of Irminsul, the storage place of memories, and I'm guessing it also takes our memory of knowing how to jump, attack, and crouch. After 42 hours, we were finished with Act 5 and could begin Karibert. This is mainly here just because I believe it's only fitting that our main DPS be rewarded with a Presidential Medal of Honor for her performance in this challenge. It was looking very rough for a majority of this game, but Lisa did hold her ground, and she was even able to damage electro enemies now because of Hyper Bloom. There were certainly people doubting her credibility, but I think she has proved the doubters wrong and has proven Sleepy Joe right. And after failing my signature pause technique, I immediately wanted to take away Lisa's medal.
This character sucks.
With Karibert finished, we just had to do 2 more quests to get enough XP for Fontaine. The first quest we did was Venti's, which wasn't much of an issue because we had Venti privilege. The second quest, though, nearly scared the absolute shit out of me. I chose to do Jean's quest second, and my face hit the 1,000-yard stare when I saw my controls change. I was not prepared to do a stealth mission, and I was not taking any chances, so I got our bait ready, threw it like an Olympic champion, and like a true predator, struck when the time was right. Following the end of Jean's quest, we just had to get a little bit more XP, so I went to the original grinding domain, Cecilia Garden, which was pretty much designed for Lisa. At nearly 44.5 hours, we hit AR40 and could begin Fontaine. Fontaine Act 1 was really funny because during the child section, there was a good chance that we could have lost, like, actually. They did over 10k damage, and if we did not have the watermarks on the enemies, I actually think I could have lost this. Other than that, we had the first Fontaine presidential debate with Farina, which we won pretty handily.
The radical left. Will you shut up, man? Listen, who is on your list, Joe? Who's on your list?
Next was Act 2, which was a bit and a half towards the end, simply because the robots kept knocking us out of the circle like it was Wipeout, and every time it happened, their health got reset. Act 3 doesn't have much to talk about. It is just exploring and talking to people. So I'll show you this clip for 6 seconds and let you imagine how this felt for over an hour.
It was my honor to serve you.
Once Sleepy Joe goes to bed, we wake up to Act 4, and this one is pretty similar to Act 3, but there was something I wanted to talk about, that being the Fermine section. So, there's this feature in Genshin, and I'm not sure quite how it works, but I'll try my best to describe it. If you jump onto something that is slanted, your jump cancel will lose almost all momentum, and you jump about half as far as a normal one. I'm guessing they just got a cramp or something, I don't know. This has happened to me in the past before, and the key to fixing this is to just swap characters. You can see the issue here. Our fastest option now was to do normal attacks, but since we're a Claymore user, we have slow attacks. And when I saw that poisoned water, it felt like a godsend. At nearly 50 hours, we began Act 5. The ruins were the first obstacle, and this had yet another unexpected problem for us, the bridge. As we cross the bridge, it collapses under us. So yet again, we have encountered a section where the platforms disappear. And yet again, I fell down. No! I was right there! But we managed to just barely pass it on the next attempt, and I'll take this time to call out Navia. How slow can you be? Like, seriously, you couldn't make it here in time? A 6-year-old is faster than you sprinting. Imagine. The tower also had stairs that fell after standing, but we did still squeak out of it. Next was the room with the Ruin Guard and Hilly Trail rogues. My priority was the Ruin Guard for 2 moves, the rockets and the spin. If he did the rockets, we just had to brace ourselves. We did not have any time to dodge, so it was just picking who could survive 7k damage at that moment.
Barbara, tank this and my life is yours.
The spin had more counterplay to it, but it just meant that we had to be more careful.
Keep running. Keep... It's coming closer. No. Keep going. You're so close. No. Okay.
But if we got hit, he was keeping us in that corner. But we managed to channel our inner Nick Wilde and survive. Towards the end of the story, we challenged Farina to one last final debate for the presidency of Fontaine.
You're the sucker. You're the loser.
Woohoo!
Alright, well, whatever I do now is on Glep.
We then had to fight Farina's guards with the nicknames Shackles and Chains. Wow, this is so deep. We were then forced into playing Farina, which once again removes our controls from walking. Now, if you want to get philosophical here, you could argue. Lastly, in Act 5, we had the whale. This ending was pretty funny since we got hit by literally all of its moves, and it got to the point where Nouvelette realized there was no hope for us and just stopped helping. Act 6 really only had one problem for us, which was the Abyss Mages at the start. They killed 3 of our party members and nearly left Joe Biden all by himself, but he survived like a true American patriot. Lastly, we had the Crowd Herald, which was not a problem for our decorated main DPS until Sleepy Joe decided to push that Crowd Herald off the edge.
Did bro just die?
And now we had to restart.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to restart the fight, yeah.
Our journey ends with one last middle finger from Hoyoverse because Bear opens his domain expansion, which makes it to where no one can attack, jump, crouch, or even run in this place. Because why not?
What a bunch of a-holes.
But after 52 hours, we did it.
Here it is. We are finally reaching the goal. It's been quite a long journey. Were there some downer moments? Yes. Unfortunately, the game is pretty bad, and they want to add emotional tension and force you to walk. Literally 1984. But throughout most of it, we have defied the odds. We have done what was seen as impossible, brain dead, or even as some would call it, stupid. What started off as us abandoned on the side of a shore, waking up from our iconic nap, Joe Biden decided to make a name for himself and woke up and decided, you know what, I am not running. So that's what we did. Sleepy Joe Biden accomplished what he set out to do. He did not run. And with this last photograph, bedtime story is complete, and so is our journey. And after 52 hours, 45 minutes, and 43 seconds, we beat Genshin Impact without walking. This challenge was pretty difficult, to I'm sure no one's surprised. Putting this on the tier list, this is the gatekeeper for gamers. The main thing with this challenge is patience, but out of any challenge I've ever done, this is the only one where I can say in good faith, do not do this challenge. The other ones are more manageable and can actually provide you a good challenge, but this one I'm telling you not to do it because this could actually cause damage to your hands. Doing this motion every time is not healthy, and now I have a problem on my main account where I attack every time before I walk normally. This has persisted for like close to a month now. The exploration isn't too difficult, but it is tedious. The parts of this challenge that I enjoyed the most were the stealth sections and the domains with the Fatui agents. This challenge has become a lot more enjoyable when you have to implement strategies, and when you watch them pay off, it is just so satisfying. If you ever find yourself doing another account, the stealth sections are the only ones where I could recommend you trying to do it without walking. Rogo Burr. The only reason this is not at the top is because you can use a full team. You saw the struggle we went through early on, but once we had Hyper Bloom, the combat was not much of an issue for the rest of the run. When the enemies actually hit their they can do some damage, and the only thing we can do is sit around the fire and sing Kumbaya. This has been the second longest challenge, and even though it is shorter than no teleporting, this is much more difficult because of the combat and the tedium.
First, in the all-new LEGO DC Supervillain on October 16th.
The past 3 challenges have been some of the most painful experiences I've had to do, and I just hope that the next challenge will be a breeze.